St. John at the Latin Gate. Exterior. Location. Walking along the imposing Aurelian walls built in the 3rd century, we find the Latin Gate, Porta Latina, which allowed the entrance to Rome from the southeastern direction, and whose name comes from the street that crosses it, and that once reached all the way to Capua. The picture before us is really impressive. 2 towers filled with arrow slits, framing the gap to a single arch. Looking up, we see the center of the arch. Set in stone is the chrism formed by the 2 superimposed Greek letters, Chi and Rho, the initials of the name Christos, used by Constantine I the Great on military standards. Once we pass the entrance along the right side of the road, we see the sign for the Basilica of St. John in the Latin Gate. We enter into an alley, and we find the church that immediately captivates us for its simple and comfortable style. Here is one of the hidden treasures of Rome. Its history is still hotly debated among scholars. In fact, the findings discovered during the various restructurings are subject to interpretations and conflicting opinions. History of the Basilica. Let's start from the dedication to St. John the theologian, who, according to tradition, was preaching here. The 2nd and 3rd century epichristian writer Tertullian said that John, the apostle of Jesus, was placed in a hot oil boiler, but miraculously came out safe and sound. According to the legend, the place of execution was located right near the future Latin Gate, where a chapel called San Giovanni in Olio, or St. John in Oil, was immediately built. Clearly visible today, by the entrance of the gate, it is in a 16th century style. The basilica, on the other hand, would have been built on the ruins of an ancient temple dedicated to the worship of Diana, admittedly under Pope Gelasius I between 492 and 496. Some brick fragments found near the apse seem to confirm the birth of the church in the 5th century. In particular, some of the old roof tiles stamped with the mark of the King Theodoric the Great from the 5th and 6th century. Currently, one of these important examples has been adapted into the lectern in the area of the presbytery. The dedication of the Evangelist Church should date back 2 centuries. In fact, it is not documented before 683. We also know that in the late 8th century BC, under Pope Adrian I, the basilica was completely restored, probably assuming the current system, to which a vestibule and an antiportico, that is now missing, was added. Following a partial reconstruction and the transfer of the relics of the Saint Gordion and Epimachus, the basilica, in 1191, was reconsecrated by Celestine III. To him we also owe the realization of the frescoes depicting biblical scenes that adorn the upper part of the central body arches. Between the 16th and 17th century, Baroque modernization altered the original character of the building and led, among other things, to the damage of the interior decorations. It was not until 1940 that Rosminian fathers, to whom the adjoining monastery was entrusted, proceeded with the restoration of the basilica, unearthing medieval structures and eliminating all additions from the previous period. Until nowadays, the basilica remains under the Rosminian community jurisdiction. The ageless charm of the Basilica of St. John at the Latin Gate and its simple and homely atmosphere mean that many couples choose it as a place to marry. Western facade. The main facade, preceded by a small churchyard, roughly presents the appearance it had in the late 12th century. It is assumed that originally this area was part of an exonarthex that was used in the construction of early Christian basilicas. This space, which could also be internal to the church, was intended to house the catechumens, that is, the faithful who were preparing to receive baptism, and public sinners. The well. The well to our left is flanked by 2 columns with capitals with stylized leaves. We observe the truncated cone shape and decoration with overlapping racemes, in which we find flowers and petals that recall the theme of the tree of life. On the upper edge is the Latin inscription, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit," is a reference to the formula of the baptismal rite, while the words of the prophet Isaiah, "Whoever is thirsty, come to the water," are an open invitation to draw life from the true source, which is Jesus Christ. Last but not least is the engraver's signature, "I am Stefano." The tower. To the left of the portico
Sample complete. Ready to continue?